Welcome to the Naked Dialogue podcast. I'm very happy to have you here as a guest. First of all, congratulations on the film. It's doing brilliantly in the theaters, and also everyone's loving the film so far. So I was wondering, when you shoot a movie like that, it requires a lot of research into it. And I was wondering how many years of research did you have to do, and what are the aspects of research that were primed for you?
So I always say that it takes a lifetime to research on subjects like this. To tell a human story, you have to keep researching, you have to keep your eyes open. So even if as I talk to you, maybe something will create an impression in my mind and maybe I'll use it later. So all this is part of research, keeping yourself awake, keeping yourself alert and observing as much as you can, making notes. But as far as this film is concerned, the commissioned research 4 years. So we put in 16 to 18 hours every single day, sometimes more, and we researched non-stop without taking a single day's break.
That's a lot of time to put in
Yeah.
a film. Yeah. So I was watching a lot of films recently in order to just see how these instances are encapsulated by the camera. And I watched this Boy with the Striped Pajamas, The Pianist, The Schindler's List, and all of these movies were able to capture Holocaust from every angle possible. And I think you did the brilliant job in Kashmir Files in doing the same. I understand that the production team is way beyond the director itself. So how did the entire setup come together?
See, we took a conscious decision long time ago to work very independently and with our own system. Films are made in a certain way. There's a template and everybody follows the template. So first thing we did was we broke that temple, we destroyed that temple and threw it out in a dustbin. And we said we'll just make it the way we want to make it. And then we found a lot of young people who were willing to sacrifice their lives and were willing to work like paupers because we had no money. Nobody wants to invest in movies like this. So the first thing we created was, we said our job is to tell the stories of victims. See, this film is not about Kashmir politics or about Kashmir. It doesn't matter what happened around it. It is just like Schindler's List is about Schindler's story in Holocaust. Similarly, our objective, our responsibility, our duty was to tell the stories of the victims of Kashmir genocide and the stories of Kashmiri Hindu victims of genocide. It wasn't about Kashmiri Jews or Kashmiri Christians or Kashmiri Muslims or Kashmiri anybody. It was very specifically telling the stories of Hindus because only Hindus were the victims. And so what I did was, see, you are also, there's a difference between working with people who are committed to a profession or working with people who are committed to a cause. Okay, we wanted to work with people who were committed to the cause of humanity and anti-terrorism. People who have zero tolerance for terrorism. So it was a very difficult process to pick up people like that because not everybody who's committed to the cause is a film professional. Not every film professional is committed to the cause. So it was difficult. We found them. And once we found them, you must have seen my videos also. I put behind the scenes. But all the times, every single day, I kept reminding people that we are going to be part of history. This is our contribution to the pain and suffering and the loss of the people who we couldn't help at that time. And we were sitting like ducks without doing anything. Now it is our turn to shine and contribute and tell their story to the world because I believe the first step to justice in genocide is to recognize the genocide, to acknowledge it. And I think we have successfully been able to do that.
Yeah, 100%. Acknowledging the genocide is something that one has to do like straight away. And so, one of the things that I was watching on Instagram the other day was that you put like two windows where one you were showing the short action film in the sense like whatever the scene really was from your perspective, and then the actual thing that happened. So you were comparing the real versus the depiction you did in Kashmir Files. So it seems to me that most of the scenes are not fictitious at all. Most of the scenes have been converted into showing the actual genocide and what happened. So exactly how much would you say of Krishna's perspective was fictitious, if at all?
See, I would say every single thing in the film is true. Okay, there is not even one shot or dialogue or scene which is not true. So there are two things. One thing is the physicality of a scene, and the second is the messaging of the scene. Okay, physicality is like if I have to make a story on you, then physicality is that I use a girl who wears same glasses, same hairstyle, who looks like you, and more or less you represent that girl has to represent you on screen. So that is one way of telling the truth. Another way of telling the truth is that it can be anybody, but the messaging has to be yours. What you say has to be there. So these are the two methods we used. In a lot of places we use physicality. In lots of places we have just picked up the message and made sure that whatever is spoken is truth. So almost most of the film is true. The only liberty we have taken is we have changed the timeline. Something took place, say, in 1985. Like that, the cricket scene was taking place since 85, every year. But we set it in 1990. Similarly, the last massacre scene took place in 2003. We set it in 1990. Just to give an idea, see, dates are not important. In fact, it's not that everybody left on 19th of January. People started leaving from 85. They kept leaving till 95. But then 19th January is a symbolic date. That is you have to bring everybody together. So that's why people have dates. So that was one thing. The second thing, like Krishna's speech in the end, yes, it did not happen like that. But whatever he speaks is the truth. Every single thing he says is the truth. So this film is a very beautiful combination of both the things. Like Pushkar Nath, actually there was a person like Pushkar Nath who was killed, but there can be many Pushkar Naths. But the Pushkar Nath in the film does not exist in real life, right? But whatever he's saying and doing, his behavior, that when he starts hallucinating and things like that, or licking of the biscuit, all those are real stories. So every dialogue, every thought, every incident in the film is true, and true.
No, I really like that because it tends to encapsulate everything that you basically need for a movie to give the message to people. Also, one of the brilliant things that I observed was, how Krishna is seeing all of these different narratives playing out. Pallavi ma'am's, the entire, the way she executed her teacher and the student relationship, but she was also advocating on one side for a particular narrative, and then there was another narrative from Krishna's father. I think it was Krishna's father, and there was all of these different narratives, and in the end he comes and he's like, okay, this is the truth. So it was very beautiful to watch all of these different narratives out. I'm pretty sure it took a lot of research, and then again
Oh, of course. Yeah. And also, while I was researching, see, the best part of researching and talking to living people is that everybody has a different perspective to the same truth. One incident takes place and then everybody is saying it from their point of view. So while I was researching, there were so many points of views in front of us. But that ultimately, as a storyteller, you have to find the truth. You have to dig deep into it. Because very often politics and media hijacks the issue and then they color it up, And that's why this world is divided into so many, everybody says my truth is the real truth, But the truth lies somewhere else. So you have to go to the origin. So what Krishna did was he went to the origin. He said, okay, who is the title holder of this land? Okay, why is it disputed? So if it's a dispute, let's find out who does it belong to originally? Which was the source? So he goes back to the source and he says, okay, this is how Kashmir has begun. This is the history of Kashmir. And today terrorism has destroyed everything and people are believing. In fact, a lot of young people I spoke to didn't even know that it was a Hindu land which was invaded by Islamic tyrants. Nobody knew that. Very few people in younger generation have any idea about it, because in their lifetime they have seen only Islamic state. They have not seen diversity in Kashmir. So that's how we tackled it, yeah. And so even Pallavi's speech, everything is translated in Hindi from English speeches of a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because it encapsulated everything. It was very perfectly, brilliantly shot. So just to kind of like take a detour and talk about philosophy for a second, because it seems like it's both of our interests. How would you define intelligence? Like, what do you think is intelligence?
I would say there are two ways to look at intelligence. Okay? The modern world believes that intelligence is data, memory, remembering numbers, solving puzzles, that is intelligence. But I think intelligence is what you learn from life and your interaction with the world. So, what I call it native intelligence. And you will find that a little young boy serving tea in a dhaba can have more intelligence than a person who has been to MIT or Harvard. You know, so learned knowledge, acquired knowledge, is considered to be intelligence in the modern world. I personally believe that acquired now any knowledge which doesn't help real problems of real life is not intelligence. Why God has given us intelligence? If there's any God, why or whatever, why do we have intelligence? Intelligence is for 2-3 reasons. One, to be able to survive. You should be able to survive.
Yeah.
And you cannot survive with acquired knowledge. You can solve certain problems, but you can't survive in long run. You survive with your instincts, you know. So, and the second part of intelligence is your interaction with the world, your transaction with the world, how you transact with the world. And how do you find meaning in that? And the third is to intelligence, the purpose of intelligence is to self-actualize yourself, to find the meaning and purpose of your life, your relationship with the cosmos, and why you are here, what you ought to do living in this world. So at these 3 levels, I think intelligence operates. Any kind of information which helps you in this is intelligence, but intelligence, degrees are not intelligence. Getting degrees from college is not intelligence. A lot of people think that reading lots of books gives you a lot of intelligence. That is absolute bullshit crap. Actually, it dumbs you down. More you read, more dumber you become, more dumb you become. I know it's a radical thought, but that's what I believe. I think the maximum input you get to enhance your intelligence is by deep, meaningful relationships and interactions with people, real life interactions with the nature or people. That's what I think.
That's a very good way of looking at intelligence. I don't think many people look at it that way.
Oh, don't tell me that. All the professors are going to cancel me.
No. You know, professors are cancelled by their
own professors.
Yeah. So okay, intelligence model is really great. I wanted to talk about with intelligence. So we have intelligence, we have cognition. So what I would say is intelligence is like the person's capacity to create. You know, what unique thing can you bring into the world? And then cognition would be how much are you storing in your head? And then comes consciousness and creativity. So how would you like position consciousness and creativity together? Because last time we definitely talked about creative consciousness. So I was wondering, you know, how are these two concepts clashing together and making a whole?
There are many consciousness in this world, you know. Of course, we are all united with one consciousness, I understand. But what is that one consciousness? Everybody talks about it, but nobody can say, okay, this is the consciousness I know. And over ages, if you look at thousands of years of human history, people have expressed this concept in various ways. Somebody calls it ultimate truth, somebody calls it moksha, somebody calls it salvation, somebody calls it the judgment day, whatever you want to call it. But we know there is something there. Something is there which human mind is not being able to solve. You know? So we know that. And all societies, all cultures, civilizations have tried to reach there. And to reach there, we have formed religions, non-religions, democracies, socialism. Human beings have been experimenting. Why are we experimenting with all these things? Why do you need a democracy? Why do you need socialism? Why do we need economic structures? I mean, we are human beings. There is universe. Just go, whatever resources you get, Apple, you take it first, I get it first. But we keep experimenting. We think there's certain kind of order which is going to take us somewhere. And in that quest, we also realize that by doing this, we are missing out on something superior than all these things. And what is that? So, all societies, different cultures are united by certain consciousness. Why is it that people of this belief system do not like the people of different belief system? Because they are operating from different consciousness. So the first, like a child doesn't immediately belong to the worldly consciousness. Child belongs to a different consciousness. Do you know that a child recognizes everybody but doesn't recognize himself or herself as little baby?
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Psychology.
And then slowly starts recognizing himself or herself. But that recognition is not the real recognition. That recognition is coming through your eyes. Okay, a mom is saying, oh, you are so beautiful, you are so beautiful. Everybody is coming in saying, you are so beautiful. And the child starts seeing himself or herself as beautiful. Right? And there are certain children, everybody comes and says, no, this is not right with you, this is not right with you, this is not right with you. And the child starts recognizing himself as a defective piece. And the child grows up with the consciousness that I'm not good enough to belong to a world of perfect pieces, I'm a defective piece. Like that. Or starts belonging to a consciousness, since I am defective, I must break and destroy everybody else. So all these consciousness is not that we naturally belong to. This is all who is saying that there is one consciousness everybody belongs to are the people who have attained that. But the common people, ordinary people don't do that. So you start your journey. You are born and somebody says, here, write 786 or Allah and you are a Muslim. Write Ram and you are a Hindu. Write Jesus and you are a Christian. Put a cross. Okay. You with a metal of cross, it's a metal.
Yeah.
It's a piece of metal, nothing else. With that metal, you start identifying with a certain consciousness. What is consciousness? Consciousness is nothing but a buildup of memories in our DNA over thousands of years.
Yeah.
Okay. So first consciousness, I'm sorry, it's a little detailed explanation.
No, I'm loving it. Absolutely.
Okay. So when you're born with your DNA memory. You don't have consciousness memory. You don't belong to the consciousness you've come to. So you're carrying old consciousness in your mind, and which is our DNA, human beings' DNA, because the history of humanity is full of conflicts and violence. So we are born with that consciousness, okay, which is of conflict. And that's why we love a child so much. We tender, loving care and all those kind of things we do. So we come to this world of conflict. And most of the people stay in that consciousness of conflict, the conflict consciousness. And we are more destructive than we are creative. Okay? But with a lot of social support, educational support, and being in the right place, slowly what happens is we realize that the importance of creativity, of being creative. What is being creative? Being creative is correcting our DNA memory, which is of conflict and violence, correcting that. And instead of being destructive, trying to be creative. So creative consciousness is scarce commodity. It's a totally different thing, like we are talking right now. This is creative consciousness. Slowly, if we keep doing it, if suppose one full day we start talking, there will come a stage that we will transcend from here to creative consciousness. Because those ideas, the transaction of ideas are creating something new. Okay, and then you are not here to impress anyone, you just belong there. But right now, if you say, no, this guy is speaking, I don't agree with him, okay, therefore I must show him down, I should prove my authority here. You without realizing, subconsciously your mind is working like that. And what is subconscious? Subconscious is the real consciousness. Do you know that?
Yeah,
that is the real consciousness. That is the motive to do everything. So then you will start dominating me, and then I'll start dominating you, and we get into a destructive con. So that is, broadly speaking, these are two consciousness in this world. That's what I think. And so that's why I profess that everybody should belong to creative consciousness.
When we talk about creativity, I think a lot of times people do not understand that it's also something to be unique, right? Something to be one in itself.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. Like you talked about, if we start talking for like a whole day, at some point we'll have moments where all of this beautiful creativity would come out, because it's unique, because we're having a conversation. So Carl Jung famously talked about the collective unconscious. He was like, there's this entire unconscious aspect which is collectively shared by the human civilization. So we have, you know, all of these archetypes, which are, so you might have an archetype of the mother, so it's, you know, Mother Mary, and then it could be any Hindu deity, you know. And you can have something like the Holy Father, and, you know, same goes for that. Like, these are just two examples. But an archetype is a universally recognizable pattern. So, you know, the collective unconscious is like full of these brilliant like symbols and like archetypes. And what fascinates me the most is how, for some reason, whenever we are in a state of creativity or uniqueness, for some reason these archetypes are coming out from our unconscious, because we are being creative. So what do you think is happening with, you know, the unconscious and the conscious and the subconscious, like, you know, these three registers of consciousness, or like as Freud described it, you know, pre-conscious, subconscious, unconscious?
I've also studied all these things, you know. The thing is, somebody has to write a textbook, so they have to make lots of graphs and diagrams and categories and breaking things into many parts and all that. That's fine to understand the rules of the game, but I won't get stuck into that, you know. And I would say, see, the archetypes, why they are important. They are important to understand the phenomenon of the world, you know, to understand, yes, okay, somebody is like that, so this should be the result. So we spend in cause and effect, right? This person is a angry person, so has to behave like this. Like cinema, I'll tell you, in script writing, when if you read, go to a film school, and when you study script writing, the first thing they teach you is that a story has to be told in 3 acts, and there are 8, I think, 8 archetypes. Protagonist, antagonist, and sidekick, and the comedian, and like that. So 8 archetypes, and they say all the stories in the world are told in these 8. I think it's 8. I'm not sure. It's been a long time I read those books. So 8 archetypes, you know, and which is why any Hollywood film you show me, any, even Oscar winning, okay, you show me one scene, I'll tell you what the next scene is going to be, and I can tell you what the dialogues are going to be. I can even tell you how these actors are going to act, because what Hollywood has done is they have archetyped every single thing. They said, this is how it is, therefore this is how it is. Just to take it to a, because in the morning I was discussing, the Israel's Consul General was here, and we were discussing this. Now, the minute, for example, in this world, which is the major argument going on right now, majority and minority. Okay, now we have created this archetype that if somebody, a character is from majority, has to be an oppressor, and somebody from the minority has to be oppressed. Correct? Now, okay, let me break this archetype. I say, okay, there's a majority of 100 people, and there is only one person which is minority. Okay, one person. So obviously minority. So who's the oppressor? Obviously majority. Who's the oppressed? This minority. Okay, there's a secret which I am not telling you, a little, I'm covering up one secret. Now I tell you, this one person has got a machine gun. Now you tell me, what's the situation?
Yeah, it's literally reversed.
Literally reversed?
Yeah.
Correct? So, which means archetypes don't work unless the full truth comes out.
True. Yeah, it proves that.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So only when you have full truth in front of you, then only you will know who's the oppressor and who's the oppressed.
Yeah, true.
Okay?
Yeah.
So just to assume, but then the West, because they were conquering the world and they were basically illegally occupying most of the territories in the world, looting people. It started from the Vikings. From there, they have done that. So therefore, they have used the hard power, which is guns and all that, and they've also used a lot of soft power.
Yeah.
And the soft power is also most of these theories. Okay, most of these theories, they have created various kinds of theories. Okay, yes, there is a subconscious, and there is a consciousness. But as I will speak only what I understand, I speak the Hindu philosophy and psychology, and in which it is believed that you are at any given point of time, you are in control of your mind. You can be in control of your mind. And only when you control your mind, then you rise above all these subconscious, unconscious, and conscious, and you become part of a consciousness. Okay, so these are two contrasting things, and that's why Freud is not very popular in the East. It's very popular in the West, and Eastern philosophers have criticized him a lot. In fact, who was his student? Who was the next psychologist? Carl Jung.
Carl Jung, yeah.
Okay, when he came to India, okay, so he didn't get the kind of audience he was used to in the West, because so many yogis and so many saints he met, and they just demolished all the theories, all the theories. So just to say somebody is repressed or somebody is suppressed, okay. So this is what I think. Of course, there is subconscious mind, but if it's a repressed mind, then if you look at it like this, if they say, okay, dream big, but these dream big is also not the right thing to say, because then dreams are coming from the suppressed mind. So therefore, it has to be violent and it has to be negative. Then, which means dreaming big means seeing a violent dream. I mean, I'm just extending the thought. You know what I mean? Therefore, I said never dream. Never ever dream. Dream is the first step to fail. Always have a vision.
Have a vision.
Vision.
Yeah.
So this is the difference between the Western and Eastern way of looking at it. One believes in dreams. One believes in vision. One is obsessed with dream. One is obsessed with vision. So yeah, that's my limited knowledge on this subject.
No, that was definitely not limited. It was overloaded. So one of the other things that you were talking about, majority and minority, right? So one of the things that deeply kind of like puts me into like a thinking mode is how democracy has been in crisis, you can say, for a couple of years now. People have their own opinions on what a democracy is. People have their own opinions on what left and right is, and there's no consensus. Like civilization for me seems to operate on one consensus, because if you have to have a collective, everyone has to agree on something. And now we have individualism at rise. Everyone's like, yeah, I have my own thinking, I have my own thinking. So what do you think is going to happen to democracy from this point on? Like where we are at humanity?
See, democracy is a dead institution. Democracy is just like somebody, your grandfather has died, but you have kept the picture on the wall, and you have to just say namaste in the morning before leaving without caring about them. It's like that. And it's not a new thing. If people think democracy has died now, it's wrong. People are realizing it now because social media is amplifying it a lot. But why Socrates was killed? Because he said that democracy is a failed institution. And he said that democracy will eventually become mobocracy. And that's what is happening all over the world. I don't know at which point of time democracy succeeded. Okay, and this is again, who's saying that democracy is wonderful? The people who are in the democracy, right? Which problem, tell me, democracy has solved so far? Okay, equality? No.
Yeah, no.
The discrepancy is increasing day by day.
True.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's bad.
The differential is increasing.
Yeah.
People are getting more isolated and marginalized.
Yes.
Poverty? No. Absolutely no.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe economic indicators show something else, but in real life you see more and more poverty. Conflicts? No. Democracy has not been able to solve internal conflicts, forget the external conflicts. Right? Illegal occupation? No. America is the largest democracy in the world, but they keep illegally invading so many countries, especially
Yeah.
the Middle East.
Yeah, true.
And yes, in Middle East, there is no democracy in lots of places, but are they less happy than people in US? That is also a question one has to ask. So I think democracy and socialism are just alter egos of each other, or communism. And I'm not a great fan of the this kind of democracy, because 51% people say this is correct and 49 say that is wrong. Okay, but then you listen to 51% people. So this vote based, this majority based, you see, this is the biggest hypocrisy of democracy, is that it promotes majority.
True. That's
Okay,
not.
because the ruling party comes from majority, not from the minority. Okay, let the loser have say has no meaning. So because the majority says Democrats or majority says Republicans, so therefore they rule it. And once they sit over there, then they do all this drama of hypocrisy and they say, no, 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 our heart bleeds for minority. If your heart bleeds for minority, the first thing is you should resign from there and give representation to the losing minority. So that is where the fundamental problem with this thing is. Then the somebody who has won on the vote of majority will always make policies for the majority. Okay, so that is the problem, majority and minority. Second thing is, a minority in 10 kilometers away from here can be majority or minority, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, like I gave you the example, 100 people are majority, one person is minority, but one person with a gun is, or with a crooked mind, one person can make a bomb and destroy everything,
Yeah.
isn't it?
He's capable of.
Yeah, and look at the world is full of majority, which is good people. People are primarily good. 7.5 billion people, I can guarantee you, 7.4 billion people are really good. They love peace, they love happiness, they love families, they want to be intimate with people, they want equal distribution of resources. They are not very ambitious to make millions and billions, but then little minority is so ambitious and so greedy that they want to take all the resources, exploit all the people, sit on the top, and then talk about minority and majority. That's what they are doing. So terrorists are in minority, they are not in majority, but they are destroying the world, isn't it? And the people who believe in humanity are in majority. So who's oppressing who? Today, I think, is the minority which is screwing the world. The minority of billionaires, the minority of terrorists, the minority of powerful people, they are screwing the world, not the majority.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. Makes a lot of sense.
I'm talking on a larger basis, not in a very smaller political
Yeah, no,
lens.
no, it makes on a broader scale also it makes a lot of sense. So, I was thinking, if we do have democracy, which has been in crisis, to kind of close off this podcast, I want to ask you, what are newer ways of forming newer institutions where we can like guarantee people that, okay, maybe if democracy is not working, this could work? Like, do you think there never can be a perfect system, but do you think there can ever be a close to a perfect system where the human civilization can operate as one unity, both economically, politically, just like a government sphere?
Okay, so I don't know. I'm no magician who can just find a new system, but I personally believe that there should be more micro management of society. Every city or village should have their own system to rule themselves. Because see, local problems cannot be controlled by the centralized power system. So decentralization, I think, is very, very important at every level, at family level, at the job level, and everywhere. And the second thing is, we have to understand that the hierarchy is a very big problem in the world. The hierarchy. Understand hierarchy?
Yeah.
Socio-political hierarchy. Like, I'm superior, you are inferior. Even if you see in my film, there's a dialogue which Pallavi speaks, and she says, there is a hierarchy of oppressions in this world. There's a hierarchy of genocide. So you put Holocaust at the top, and you say this is like the biggest tragedy in the world. Then you say this is the biggest, which means everything else is smaller.
Is oppressed.
And then you say, Acha, Kashmir, this also happened. Okay, we didn't know, we have just got to know about this genocide. So where do we fit in? Okay, put it under Rwandan genocide or Armenian genocide. So we are doing, how many people were killed? Okay. So we were 6 million, so you are just 100,000. So you come at the lower this thing. That should go.
That should go. Yes,
You know,
completely.
that should go. This number game should go.
Yeah.
This whole problem, the greed is coming from number game. That should go. And from being a quantitative society, we should shift to qualitative society. Isn't it? From being, see, look at this whole fakeness of globalization. Okay, we say we are globalized world, we are very well connected world. We are not connected world at all. We are very isolated world. You talk to individuals, they are very isolated, very lonely. They are lonely because they are not fitting into this hierarchy. So if you're not fitting into a systematic hierarchy, then you are out of the system. Then you are marginalized. Okay, but the problem is with the activists themselves. They are not willing to accept social hierarchies, but they are very, very, very willing to surrender to the corporate hierarchy. The minute they join a company, they are willing to become presidents, vice president, chairman, managing director. Hierarchy should not be vertical. Okay, it should be horizontal, which means it's like one big play going on. Everybody is playing a role, and even the smaller role is as important as the bigger role. So all of us are playing role, and India had that system. This entire village system. Now, if I open my mouth, people will kill me. It's very wrongly presented. But if you look at the social structure, okay, this entire caste system, actually caste is not Indian word, it's a Portuguese word. You know that?
I just got to know.
Oh, you didn't know?
No, I had no idea.
Caste is not an Indian word. There is no Hindi in English. It's a caste. It's a Portuguese word. So when they came to India, they brought this word with them, and the whole world is believing in that. But we have a Varn system, which means you do a job, a certain job, and accordingly you have a social infrastructure for you. Suppose, say for example, you are a teacher. You don't do any physical work. So you don't have to live in a noisy place. You can live in a place where you can do your research, meditate and do stuff. And somebody is a carpenter who's doing talk, will live in a separate place. So this separation of physical space is not because of any a vertical hierarchy. It is because of the different requirements. Why do you have a factory in a different place and corporate office in a different place and the R&D in a different place? You are willing to accept that. Okay? So there is a reason. There is a reason for everything. But then it got distorted. Then India got invaded. Then Mughals came. They didn't understand this system of Varna system. Slowly it became a Jati system. Then the Portuguese came. They started calling it a caste system. Since they did not understand it, they started giving it a bad name. But we had a perfect system. We had an absolutely perfect system. And therefore you see, there was no internal conflict. There may be a conflict for who's going to rule, more for territorial, but there was no internal conflict in the society. In you read the history of India, pre-Mughals, you won't find, give me one instance where there were riots or massacres. These riots are very alien things to India. But once invaders came, and especially when the Britishers came, then our history is all full of riots and massacres and conflicts and genocides, because West only knew that language of conflict and violence. That's all they knew. That's all they did all over their entire history.
Yeah, it is a huge problem of labeling things. People just like label things. Yeah, this is a massacre. But like, what about really getting down and understanding what really happened? But not from only one perspective, looking at like all sorts of perspective and then making up your mind. I think people analyze very less these days, and I think that is a problem. But
See, that's because there are no deep, meaningful relationships. Now I look at you. Okay, you are wearing certain kind of glasses, you have a certain hairstyle, certain clothes, you speak in a certain way. So it's very easy for me to judge you and label you instantly. Okay, because I don't have to make an effort after this. Okay, I've labeled you and I have understood you, or for all my life. So, and then we meet superficially, labels meet labels. It's only when you have deep, meaningful relationships, where you don't judge and condemn. Like when you go to Go to a forest, you are not judging and condemning a forest. You just become part of that landscape, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you just sit there, you listen to the chirping of birds, you listen to the breeze through the leaves, and you become the landscape. It's only when you are sitting in a car driving through a forest and seeing it through your window, right? When you are outside the landscape, then you are judging and condemning the forest. The minute you step out of your car and you start walking in the jungle, then you are one of you part of the ecosystem. Then a tiger can come and eat you up or not eat you up or lick your feet. Anything can happen. But inside the car, I'm safe. Nobody can touch me, so I can judge and this thing. So that is the problem with labeling. And if you want to avoid labeling, the first thing is to dive into the river straight away and have a deep, meaningful relationship. And since you are a young girl, I would recommend, if you really want to be successful and happy in your life, dive into relationships without being afraid. Okay, what will happen? The relationship will perish, won't survive. But then you will get to know different kinds of people, different kinds of dynamics of relationships. And life is nothing except for relationships, let me tell you. Your relationship with the world, with animals, with trees, with your work, with your thinking, with people, with family, father, mother. Everything is a relationship. You sit in a cab, that half an hour journey, okay, is going to be good or bad depending on your relationship with the direct or with the driver. And every relationship does not have to come from spoken words. There are physical vibes, that also create relationships.
No, that's very brilliantly put. So I'm not going to take much of your time.
You can. A couple of more questions.
No, but thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Let me ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you a couple of questions. Okay, so now there is a generation which has grown up in analog world. Analog means non-digital world.
Yeah.
Okay, and new world, which is you, okay, is growing up in digital world. And there definitely is a gap of understanding. What, according to you, is that gap?
I think the only gap is the issue of not understanding how things are playing out in a particular timeline. So if there's a gap between, let's say, me and my father's age, right? So him being, let's say, 50 something and I'm 20 something. So he, according to his timeline, things have progressed from not being digital to being semi-digital to being extremely digital and now going towards super intelligence. And then my timeline has only been pre-digital and now full digital, and the future is coming. So there's a problem of not following a particular timeline and not understanding that there's two timelines which are existing, and that if only I am able to comprehend and if I'm able to understand, maybe I can bridge the gaps. So it's all about the time and the causal relations of all of these timelines that I think might be the issue. But you tell me what.
No, I totally understand.
Yeah.
So therefore, the responsibility of storytellers is to bring in front the missing timelines. Yeah. So, for example, if you listen to me and I explain my timeline to you, and you explain your timeline to you, so we'll find basically we just missed out on certain things, but it's one continuous timeline.
Yes, exactly.
Therefore, history makes sense, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you put historical facts one after another, then only you understand their relevance, because the media and the politics has habit of telling us in bits and pieces, fragmented pieces. So we never understand, we are always confused. So, okay, another thing I want to know from you is that I have a feeling, this is my personal observation and experience in life, that when I was growing as a younger person, me and people around me, all the younger people, were more patient. We could sit for hours and listen to somebody without even nodding our head. And also we used to enjoy life a lot because we didn't have fear of losing anything. Why is it that now the younger breed is so impatient, so fidgety? What is happening? What is the real reason?
It's because things are getting easier. So if we go all the way back to the ancient man, and they were making stones and making fires, and then slowly the industrial revolution. You take the entire timeline. So us as humans, we're trying to
pacing
make
up.
we're trying to make life as easier as possible. So now within my timeline, let's say, right, like I was born, and then there was some music in the CDs, then the iPod happened, and then now we have like music everywhere. So we're just trying to make life as much easier as possible. So if my timeline, I'm born in a particular timeline where this new digital thing is coming up, but at the same time, to me it seems that because we're making life so much easier, we're becoming very impatient. So now we have our phones, no? So if anything happens, we have it on our phone. So we don't have to get up, and we don't have to go out, and we don't have to look at things, making life easier. So the pace at of the getting life easier is what is making the younger generation even more impatient, because they're born into this. They're born into a world with iPhones where they don't have to go out, and where they don't have to learn photography, and they can just like click pictures, no? So this is I feel like it's the aspect of humans and making things easier, and the pace at which we're going towards it is what is making this entire thing a problem.
Okay. Yeah, and also I've seen that people don't know you and they immediately want to form opinions and judgments, and they feel very uncomfortable if they can't judge you whether you are, and labels you are right, whether, okay, a lot of people meet me, right or left, okay, stuff like that. But that's fine. I mean, that's a, but one thing I have not understood, that why Indian young boys and girls are growing up, hating is too harsh a word, but trying to isolate themselves from the great philosophy of this country. I mean, okay, so West the contribution of West is science to this world. And the contribution of the East, which is primarily the hub is India, is philosophy. Okay, we have given the greatest of the philosophy. So if you want to, suppose there is something wrong with your phone and you have to solve this problem, you look at the West and instantly they will solve the problem. Okay, because all the engineers, everybody will get into this and they'll solve. You have to create cryptocurrency, go to the West. You have to create a new social system, go to the West. You have to create new jargon for power play to dominate somebody, go to the West. You have to catalog things, make libraries, go to the West. But if you have to solve relationships, if you have to find, to solve problems of life, find meaning of lives, if you have a breakup and you want somebody to give you solace, soothe you, then Indian philosophy comes handy. If you have health problems, Indian philosophy comes. So health, relationships, anything related to life and the world and cosmos. But eventually the technology is not going to make you happy. This philosophy is going to make you happy. But why people are slowly running away from this and they've started hating everything about India? The minute somebody says, I'm a Hindu, people think you are a communal person. Why is it happening, which is not true?
It's all because of labeling, all the miscalculations. So first of all, we're trying to make life easier, which is another element. But this entire aspect of labeling is what frustrates me, because we're just making judgments in 1 second and 2 seconds. Everything is
labeled?
100%.
How do they label you? What is the label?
If I say something about Israel, let's say, I will be labeled as right wing. If I say something about Kashmir too, if I acknowledge the genocide, oh yeah, you are in the right wing, so you are saying all of these things. But am I right wing? So that is the question, no? I would sit down and I'm thinking, am I right wing? Yeah, I do have some liberal thoughts. I do also like traditional values. So maybe I'm somewhere in the center. Yeah, but this person has taken 1 second of time to just say, okay, I'm right wing. Because again, patience is getting lower. This entire aspect of patience, like you were saying before, no one has it anymore. So people just want fast answers because life is fast. So I think that is the problem now.
You can't appreciate Israel.
Yeah, if I do, then I'm right wing. If I don't acknowledge Palestine, then I'm definitely right.
But then there is a contradiction. At the same time, so if you don't recognize Jews and if you don't recognize Israel, you also don't recognize Holocaust.
Yes, exactly.
Then if you don't recognize Holocaust, you are right wing.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems.
So there's a lot of problems are here.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so if the left wing says that violence is bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
But in case of Kashmir, the minute I say Hindus were killed by terrorists, then they say you are right wing. So they justify terrorists in Kashmir, but they don't. So basically, this world is all full of hypocrisy. All these systems and institutions are basically to defend yourself. Okay, a left here will become right there. Nobody can be extremely left or right. You can be economically right but culturally left, or you can be culturally right and vice versa. We don't do anything in absolutes. Nothing is in absolute. Is there anything in absolute?
Nothing.
Nothing can be in absolute. If nothing can be in absolute, then there cannot be a hard line. Okay, there cannot be a hard line. Life is not one canal which you build like in one straight direction. Life is always like a river and a stream which moves in various directions, goes everywhere, experiments, learns, and ultimately goes inside the sea.
Yeah.
So that's a very Eastern philosophy I'm talking about. And the Western philosophy is no, you said it 10 years ago, so therefore you are like this. Why? Isn't it? They are cancelling people for what they said hundreds of years ago, or thousands of years ago.
Yes.
They are cancelling gods, they are cancelling scholars, but that is, I think, is big piece of problem in this world. You cannot cancel somebody from the times you don't even know anything about. So we have to be present in the present, and we have to look at people for they are, not look at people, look into people for what they are. The problem is we are always looking at the person, never looking into the person. So why I'm asking you these questions is because a lot of people after the Kashmir files, they say, oh, you are right winger, or you are, this is propaganda and all that. But I made a film for a human tragedy so that the world learns that the biggest enemy of humanity is terrorism. Anybody with a gun is never minority. Okay, one person with a gun can kill 50 people, serial killers and all that. Similarly, anybody with the power of narrative can never be minority.
100%. So if anyone labels me, if I go ahead and I say, I acknowledge the Kashmir files, and they say, oh yeah, you're right wing, I'm like, no, it's acknowledging a genocide, and that is distinct.
But when they look at your pictures on Instagram, then you are not right wing.
Oh
then
yeah,
you are, then what you are.
Then I'm left wing for sure.
So which means if you do modern pictures with lesser clothes, then you're left wing. And if you wear a sari, then you're right wing.
Right wing.
So do you realize how stupid human beings are?
100% stupid.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
We are the stupidest race in this world.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Completely. Yes.
Yeah. Animals are not killing each other. We are killing each other, isn't it? Animals kill. Do you know if you go to a national park in jungle, and if a tiger has eaten food in the morning and if he's not hungry, you can just go and sit next to the tiger, won't touch you.
Because it is well fed.
Yeah. They only kill you when they are hungry. And that also they won't attack you because they don't know you. They won't attack you. And we have this habit of attacking people we don't know.
True. Yeah.
In fact, lesser we know, more attacking mode we are in. Isn't it?
Yeah.
So we are always hurting people. And so my only thing is there's no left wing or right wing. There is only one wing, which is a human wing. And all of us should try to belong to that.
That is very beautiful. I'd love to just end it here. But
so yes, let's end it here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Great. Wonderful. All the best. Keep shining.
Yeah.